Welcome back to Cactus Wrestling. And before we dive in, hit that subscribe button if you know what's good for you. Today, we're going to be discussing and debating the four-time NCAA champion winners. So we have Pat Smith, Kale Sanderson, Logan Steiber, Dake, and Yanni Diakomihalis. And we're going to rank them from 5 all the way up to 1. So without further ado, let's get this thing started. And I have this nifty little cheat sheet, guys, that I'm going to share on the screen here. And we were talking off camera. I think Logan Steiber is he's a guy that's probably the least forgot about or the most forgot about, but I think he deserves more credit than you would think, just based
Yeah,
on
I mean, initially when we looked at the 5, I was like, Logan Steiber's probably going to be number 5,
Yeah.
in my head, right out the gate. That just based off of what I'm remembering, because I mean, 3 of these guys are in the past 10 years, and of the 3, Steiber stands out in my brain the least. But maybe seeing stats might change my mind. But
Yeah, I think the same thing with Logan Steiber is like I remember him hitting 4 times, and then people would just be like, that's cool. It didn't
I
have
was
the
there. I was
Yeah.
literally there, and I was like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Like I said, I think that like when Kyle Dake did it or Kale Sanderson, there was this huge buildup to it, obviously, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But I just feel like Logan Steiber has one of the most easily forgotten careers, which is crazy because, as we'll talk about, like he's pretty dang good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even the guys that he beat in the finals.
Yeah.
Jordan Oliver won the title. Tony Ramos won the title. Port and Carter didn't, but
One thing I do wonder about with Stieber is, do you think it's because of his lack of international success or coaching success that so many of these guys have had? Where once he won it, he moved out of the spotlight almost immediately. I mean, he did win the world title, but
yeah, he
no
didn't
one
he
talks
didn't
about him.
wrestle internationally very long. Yeah,
No.
that is a good point.
Yeah, but even like you were saying though, when he did win it,
No.
it still felt kind of underwhelming.
Underwhelming.
Unless you were Ohio State, it still felt kind of underwhelming. And I don't know the reason why. I can't pin it, but there was less hype because okay, Pat Smith, he was the first one ever to do it. Kale
Yeah.
Sanderson was the first undefeated one to do it. Kyle Dake was the first one to do 4 different weight classes, and then Logan Steiber, yeah, I did it.
Yep.
And that was pretty much it. And then Yanni is the most recent one. There's obviously some hype because he's been one of the faces of wrestling over the past few
Yeah.
years. But Steve, there's just
Pressure
something.
in our minds.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of a recency bias,
Yeah.
but I mean, obviously we have the records going right here. To kick things off in the rankings, I'm going to throw out Yanni as number 5. Few points here. He out of these 5, he has the least amount of wins. He does not have a Hodge Trophy, although Pat Smith does not have one as well. But the Hodge Trophy came out after his career was over.
Yeah, so that
number of pins, he's only had 25 career pins. That's less than almost half than all these other guys. He did have a 75 win streak at one point.
I mean, he does have a lot of techs.
I think techs are important. I mean, you know how I feel about techs, but
then again, if you add the 2 up for the guys that you wrote the techs with,
it's
he
still
still
under
has.
50.
Well, I mean, he's kind of on par with Dake, but
well, he has no Hodge Trophy win, and just kind of the finalists that he beat compared to some of the other guys. Okay, Sammy Sasso, sure, he's still got another year. Ridge Lovett, he was a sophomore, so he could be a potential NCAA champion down the road. McKenna, he's still going in international, but he was never a champ, right? He was never a champ.
None of these 4 guys won a title.
None of them ever won.
Right.
And Meredith doesn't even wrestle anymore. He does UFC.
Yeah, no, yeah. He's like 3 or 4-0 in UFC.
Yeah. And then the most interesting stat that I stumbled upon, this is NCAA points scored. So these are points scored for your team in the NCAA tournament. Yanni by far has the least amount out of these 5 with 88 total. He only had like 3 bonus wins in 4 NCAA tournaments, which compared to some of these other guys who were pinning and teching and majoring, all these other guys. I don't know. I think Yanni is. I think he's the number 5 on this board.
I think the moment that kind of stood out for me this season was Yanni almost losing to Max Murin, who had never even been an All-American at that point. And I think he won 8-7. And there's some controversy about how people would score that match. But again, not what you expect for a guy going for his 4th national title that only has 2 losses in his career up to that point and over 100 wins, is that he's in a dogfight, absolute dogfight with a guy that's never even made the podium in his career. So I think that, looking at it originally.
I think you're making some strong points, guys, that Yanni probably is the least impressive of the 5 based on the number of wins, the quality of the finalists that he had. Like none of them ever won a title, least amount of bonus points out of anyone, least amount of points scored at the NCAA tournament, almost getting knocked off by a non-All-American at that point. Like, I think he's kind of cemented himself as number 5, even.
Yeah. He had a lot of close overtime matches.
Yeah, Ridge Lovett the year that he not in the finals, but Ridge Lovett brought him to overtime that year earlier in the season. So I
like to see Cael or something.
Yep, and I think he beat McKenna in overtime. I think he beat a few other people in overtime, which, I mean, he was able to find a way to win. He only lost 2 matches in his career, one to Jaden Ironman, one to Austin Gomez this season. But in terms of dominance, in terms of just, I guess, overall performance, I think he's probably number 5. And maybe that'll change 5 years from now when we look back. But right now, I think that's how it stands.
One thing, too, with Yanni is that I think out of all of them, he had the longest time in college. I mean, he had redshirt years, Olympic years. I mean.
Well, then the COVID year also affected him, too.
Yeah. So that's what I mean.
Cornell canceled their season, so he just kind of took Olympic year or something?
Well, it was an Olympic year and then the COVID year, I think.
Right.
So he had a lot of time to continue to develop. And I think, we kind of talk about this like a recency bias. We're like, Yanni's the man. Like, he's so good. And not that he's not good, obviously. But out of the 4-timers, he's probably not, I think 5 is a pretty okay position for him.
Yeah, because the other 4 were there at max 5 years, and Yanni was there longer than that. So
I think 6.
So who do you guys think deserves number 4? I'm curious because this could go a couple different ways, I think.
I'm kind of torn between Steiber and Pat Smith.
I'm leaning more towards Pat Smith at this point, especially after seeing Steiber scored the 2nd most NCAA points.
It's true, 103.
That stood out to me.
Dude had 50.
He also has the 2nd most amount of pins. Like, seeing the statistics, it's hard to deny that he clearly was dominant.
He was a hammer on top.
He was.
Two out of the 4 guys that he beat ended up being NCAA champions. Like Oliver and Ramos both won titles of their own. Carter and Port never did, but that's 2 out of the 4 guys. So
Jordan Oliver being a multiple-time national champion as well. I mean, I think he was a 3-timer.
Yeah,
might have been 2 actually. I think.
So he has 1 Hodge. Now it's kind of hard to compare that with Pat Smith because the Hodge Trophy wasn't around. But
I'm sure he'd be in contention with 46 pins.
But Pat Smith also had this stat: 98 win streak at one point in his career. That's substantial. That's 20 matches greater than the next. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Cael went undefeated, but no one else. I mean, Dake had 79.
Well, I mean, other than Cael, because Cael had 159 win streak. So.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you guys saying about Steiber? He lost to Zane, right?
Yeah, he lost to Zane in the dual meet. Who was not even the starting guy at that point. He was just a guy.
Zane's true freshman year, and then they didn't, like Mike said, I don't think he wrestled the rest of the season, or he did, and he didn't. I don't know how he did it. NCAA's that year. I think he took 5th. But then he redshirted anyway to be like, oh yeah, like you're okay, but like you need another year to develop.
And he had just beat a guy that was a 4-timer.
And again, that's one of Logan Stieber's only losses. One thing that I still watch is the Jordan Oliver versus Logan Stieber match, where there's maybe some controversial calls that could have been called a little bit differently now, and it could have definitely changed the way that we're even viewing this. I mean, Logan Stieber could potentially not be on this list if a call goes one way or the other. And I know now it's still a hot take by Ohio State fans and Oklahoma State fans that kind of go back and forth. And I think we're going to see it we've seen it with some Iowa guys, and we might see it with Carter Starachi, is that they're kind of like the villain, where Jordan Oliver is like the bad guy to Logan Stieber's like, oh, I'm like this, I'm the face of Ohio State. And sometimes they get, refs are people. They'll make a call sometimes that maybe goes in favor of the good guy, so to speak. I just feel like Logan Stieber, for as good as he is, does have that kind of tainted spot. But statistics,
because I mean,
that is hard to put past, because if the rule was actually,
if it was called differently,
correctly, then he wouldn't even be on there. Also, another point is Pat Smith. You know the amount of pressure this guy must have had being the first one ever to do this.
Yeah, you can't deny that or ignore that. Like, this is the first guy that ever did it, and no one did it again for what, like 15 years?
Yep, not until Cael.
Cael's the next one.
Yeah. So like that first ever. I find it hard to put him down as low as 4, especially with a 98 win streak. He's got the third most NCAA points scored, nearly 50 pins.
98 win, 46 pins. This one's tough, guys. I think we're gonna have to do a 2 out of 3 vote. I came in hot on Logan Stieber. I had him number 3, easy, but I don't know. This is tough.
Right off the cuff, I was thinking Stieber was going to be 5, but then looking at
I was like, oh, easily, Stieber 5, and then just work down it. But like, Jack bringing the stats into it, it's tough to vote against Logan Stieber, but it's also tough for Pat Smith, who was the first 4-timer. I mean, this was groundbreaking then.
Granted, he does have the most career losses and has a couple ties, but comparing quality of wins, I mean, he beat Tom Ryan. I don't know some of these other guys. No offense to them, but I don't know. It's a close one. What
I'm gonna say, I think I know who I'm going with.
All right, Mike, kick us off.
I think I'm gonna go with Pat Smith. I think the quality of Logan Stieber's, for number 4.
Wow.
I think Logan Stieber's quality of wins, nearly the same amount of wins as well, with 2 less losses and no ties. I mean, in my opinion, a tie could be, isn't ideal. I don't think that.
Well, I mean, they didn't have overtime at that point, did they?
Yeah. I don't know how they did it back then, where they have a tie. I mean, even some sort of criteria like freestyle and Greco do.
Yeah.
Because I would love to see the box score in that match. He could have come from behind to force a tie, knowing that the match would end. I mean, it could easily have been 121-7, potentially. Or maybe he was winning the whole time and the guy just did enough just to tie it. Desperation tying.
That's true.
So quality of wins. I apologize to Logan Stieber for the disrespect I've given you in this list so far, where I was like, again, I remember him just like Jack. I remember him winning. I wasn't physically there, but I remember him winning and being like, oh, well, that's cool. And then no one talking about it.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, good for Ohio State. Like, they deserve this. So I'm going to go with Pat Smith as number 4 and Logan Stieber as number 3.
Mike, you have your vote?
Jeez.
Well, keep in mind who he lost to for the Hodge. He could have been a 3-time Hodge champion if it wasn't for David Taylor and Kyle Dake.
Yeah, that's true. Stieber could, that I think Pat Smith probably is the number 4 guy.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. Didn't expect that when I woke up.
I was not expecting myself to be convinced into this. But yeah, clearly it's Stieber beat him in like every category basically.
Yeah.
The only thing
less losses. I mean, okay, he's got slightly less wins, but he's got more dominant bonus percentage. He's got more NCAA points. I mean, the Hodge wasn't around for Smith, so you don't want to compare that, but still.
I mean, and also like look who broke his win streak was I believe it was Zane that broke the win streak. He had to reset it back to 50, and Zane was a 3-time national champion.
Yeah, the guy that
That's
broke his win
fair.
streak wasn't a slouch.
The
Yeah,
only thing that would have me put Steiber as 4 is the fact that with that call, Jordan
Oh yeah,
Oliver
no,
should have
that's
won.
that is
That's the
thing.
only thing that is like would put me
Copy
there.
that.
Otherwise, I'm putting Steiber as 3 and Pat Smith as 4.
So you're not arguing for Steiber to be 1 or 2?
Well, we haven't got there actually, but I'm in agreement with Pat Smith for 4. Let's get into number 3. We have Cael, Logan, Steiber, and Kyle Dake left, and I don't think Steiber can go higher than 3 here.
I mean, yeah, I don't see Steiber going higher than 3, especially because of just looking at the quality of Cael being undefeated 4-timer and Dake doing it in 4 different weight classes. I think that gives them both something that is not comparable to anything Steiber accomplished. I mean, Cael's got the highest amount of what's it called? NCAA points scored. He's got the most pins. He's a 3-time Hodge winner. Like, he's got way more than Steiber in every category. Steiber does beat out Dake in certain categories. So, I mean, maybe
Pins,
there's an
yep.
argument for Steiber over Dake. If he does have, he's got more.
He's got the more bonus points.
He's got more bonus points. If you look at Dake's 3 out of 4 of Dake's the guys that he beat in the finals, all 3 of them, Molinaro, St. John, and Taylor, all ended up being NCAA champions. So he had 3 compared to 2 champs, and David Taylor was a returning Hodge winner. So like he beat the best guy from the previous season, the most dominant guy from the previous season at a weight class he'd never wrestled at. So I just feel like that might put him a step above Steiber.
And although the bonus points may not been as high as we expect them from Dake, what I think a lot of people forget is that he never gave up points. I think going into his senior year against David Taylor, he didn't give up a single point in the NCAA tournament. He would win matches like 5-0, 6-0, just didn't give up a single. You couldn't score on him.
Yeah,
that's showing a different type of dominance, I think, than a major or a tech or a pin.
If someone can't even score on you, that is so.
I think Kyle Dake's senior year is still one of the most legendary years. He didn't just beat Dake once. I mean, he didn't beat David Taylor once. He beat him 3 times in the same season.
Yeah.
He beat him at the All-Star Classic. He beat him in they didn't have a duel. I think it was a tournament setting. They wrestled again. And then he beat him again at Nationals. I mean, name one person in the world that's beaten David Taylor 3 times, let alone 3 times in the same year.
Maybe Jordan Burroughs, but
I don't know. I think he's only beaten him 2 out of 3 every. I don't think he's ever beaten him 3
only
times
twice,
in the same season.
twice in a go. Okay,
that's international too.
Yeah, that's true. Different set of rules.
Even add to that, David Taylor stayed at 165. Kyle Dake chased him up.
Yeah.
Anyone that's ever switched a weight class in high school or even especially in college, especially the Division I level, going up a weight class is an entirely different world.
And to do it 4 times.
To do it 4 times is unheard of. It's just he was like the dude chased anyone he could. I mean, it would have been too easy to avoid Frank Molinaro, Derek St. John, or David Taylor. But he was like, every day he took a challenge and he went up, different weight. I think it might have been Kyle Dake's one of the best of the best of the best.
Well, that kind of gets into our final 2 spots. I mean, is everyone agreement? Steiber?
Yeah, I don't think Steiber can make his way higher than 3.
Is there any world in which you can argue Kyle Dake is the better 4-time NCAA champion than Kale Sanderson?
I mean, the only thing I feel like Dake has over Cael is the 4 different weight classes. He's not more dominant in any of the bonus point settings. He doesn't score more points in the tournament. He's one of the least scoring of the 5. He's the second least scoring. I mean, his bonus points are not crazy. I mean, he does have the doesn't get scored on factor, but he only won the Hodge once. Yeah, he did beat David Taylor, which was huge, the Hodge winner, like, and everything Mike had just said about that. But I still don't think that overcomes being undefeated 4-time in college. Like, that's just, it's unheard of. Not even Gable did that. Like, Dan Gable couldn't pull that off. So yeah, I feel like that can't be ignored. I feel like Cael is the best of the 4-time champs.
I think Cael's the GOAT of the GOATs. I mean, 2 of his NCAA finals was bonus point victories.
Right.
I mean, you see it now. Like, some of these guys, I think they said, like, Aaron Brooks, who I'm a huge Penn State fan. I think he set like 18 matches prior to the NCAA tournament, and that's including Big Tens. I mean, Cael's averaging 40 matches a year. This dude didn't run.
That's crazy.
Hid from no one, wrestled anyone in his way, beat the heck out of him, and then would, like, I just remember his what's your plans now? He goes, I'm gonna go fishing, like, after he won his 4-timer. He's like, he goes, my brother and I are gonna go we're gonna go fishing. And they're like, what about Worlds? He's like, yeah, we got a few weeks.
Yeah, I'll be good.
Just, the same way that he coaches at Penn State now, I feel like, is part of why they're so successful is Cael knows how to win, knows how to be great. And not that these other guys don't. I think he's just a whole nother level, and we might never see a Cael in any sport ever again.
Well, especially the point you were making, 159 career matches. That's almost 20 more than number 2 on this list, Kyle Dake. And we're not, like you're saying, like, some guys are wrestling 30 matches a year, but a lot of Penn State guys, they're only wrestling 20 matches a year because we know how grueling it is and injuries pop up and whatnot. To do that, and how do you not lose once? Like, everyone messes up. Everyone gets caught. Not him.
Just the peak of consistency. And he, I know it was 2 weight classes, 84 and 97. But I mean, to show how dominant he still is, Penn State guys talk about him in interviews like, oh yeah, like, Cael still wrestles like Carter and Aaron in the room and beats the dog out of them. Like, he beats down Max Dean, who is a 3-time or 4-time All-American?
3-time All-American, yeah.
I think, was he 4 or 3?
I think 3.
Regardless, 2-time national finalist, national champion. And then he was, like, beating down, like, Bo Nickel in the room, like, when Bo was in college. And Cael's, like, well into his, 30s, maybe even his 40s at this time. And he's just like, yep, I'm just beating the crap out of, like, these guys that are multiple-time Hodge Trophy winners for just a workout.
For just a workout.
I mean, I think it speaks to how much of a legend he still is, where he's just head and shoulders better than all these guys. And who knows if his international career continued on. I mean, he was an Olympic gold medalist as well.
Yeah, he probably would have been the one to beat John Smith's streak instead of Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that he's firmly at number 1. It sucks for Dake because he's so good, and a 4-timer in 4 different weight classes is so incredibly difficult. But I think that just the streak is what you think of. I mean, people think of streaks in pro sports and how close the Patriots were when they were like 18-1. They're like, oh, what an amazing season. It's like, dude, like, Cael did that for 4 years straight.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like, it's
hard
insane.
to fathom.
I can't put in perspective for, like, non-wrestlers. Like, the only thing I think is, like, hey, like, baseball season's really long. Imagine winning 159 games in 1 year.
There's only 162 in a season.
It's impossible.
So. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's impossible for, like, other people to, like, fathom, like, how impressive it is.
Yeah, it's unreal.
Well, there you guys have it. That's our list.
These are guys.
Yanni number 5, Pat Smith number 4, Logan Steiber number 3, Kyle Dake number 2, and Kale Sanderson number 1. There are only 5 currently as of 2023, with potential 2 adding this list next year with Carter Strocci and Aaron Brooks. If they get added, we'll have to throw them into the list and redo this thing. But until then, this is our list. And let us know what you think in the comments down below. If you agree, if you disagree, we'd love to hear from you. But there you have it.
One comment I'd like to see from y'all: where would you put Spencer Lee on this list if he did win?
Ooh.
And if Strachey goes for his 4th, gets it, and then goes for the 5th, and gets it because he has the option to go for 5. Where do you put him on this list? So something to think about in the comments.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Comment.
Like and subscribe.
Thanks for watching. We are Cactus Wrestling, and we'll see you next time on our next video.